Welcome to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with host Lane Nordland.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Cattleman's Call podcast. Lane Nordland joining you here today. Our guest is going to be Jessie Jarvis with Of the West. We're going to have a great conversation here today about her goal of bringing job seekers and employers together in the Western lifestyle professions. But before we get to our conversation with Jessie, we are going to be joined by Dr. Connie Larson with Zenpro, and we're going to discuss some ways producers can improve the performance of their replacement females out in the countryside. Obviously, nutrition is a big part of that development for heifers and looking towards the future of our cow-calf operations. But first off, just a quick background about yourself and your role there at Zenpro.
Thank you, Lane. It's my pleasure to be here. So at Zenpro, I'm one of the research nutritionists. I'm an associate director of global tech services, and my passion are beef cattle, and that's where my background comes from. So this is one of the topics I love talking about, how trace minerals can be a part of that nutrition program.
Now, so many of us, we think, we're putting lick tubs out, we're testing our soils, we're getting good forage and taking care of our pastures. But you mentioned that trace minerals. How does that really impact a cow's ability to produce quality replacements when we're not just thinking about buying that replacement heifer? Now, we're going back a few steps. So how do those trace minerals really play a key role in that?
Absolutely. So as we think about the nutrition of that cow, we always do have to have, a balanced nutrition package in front of her. We've got to have the right body condition score. And then these trace minerals that are really a small part of the diet pack a big punch. And as we think about a cow's ability to produce a replacement heifer, Lane, I always say it even starts before that cow is pregnant. And so we can dig into that topic a little bit more.
Yes, that goes into my next question. Is obviously we've seen many years of drought, consecutive years of drought, but we've also seen some good pasture conditions, a lot of grass. So we all know these different factors impact a cow's ability to reproduce. And again, there's a lot that goes into that. So I guess when we're looking at that, what do producers need to think about when we're going into another drought year, mineral-wise, nutrition-wise, and thinking of that calf as well before we're even at the stage of marketing replacement quality females?
Sure. No, great question. I think what they need to be thinking about is even before that cow's bred. So as we go into the breeding season with these cows, and what we have found based on the research we've done at Zenpro is that when we have these trace minerals, more specifically the Avela-4 from Zenpro that contains our zinc, manganese, copper, and cobalt, that really starts at the front end. We're seeing better eggs being produced by those cows that lead to stronger embryos, better retention to first service pregnancies, because we know that whether we're talking cows and heifers, that we want those that are going to breed early, calve early. And then really the genetic potential that we're going to have in that calf through that fetal development, it's key that those micronutrients, these trace minerals, are there, building all the tissues that are going to go into really that animal's immune system so that when that calf is born, we've actually produced an animal that can go into being set up for lifetime performance.
And Connie, sometimes ranchers, they work day in and day out to produce the best beef out there, have the healthiest cattle herds as well. But I think sometimes it gets neglected during times of good weather, good grass, good water, and then people think about minerals or some additional inputs they can put into their herd. Why is it essential, no matter what the weather's like, no matter what the drought conditions are, to be thinking about adding trace minerals through Zenpro products or just cattle health in general, not just during tougher times of drought?
The thing that I've probably learned over the course, I've been at Zenpro now 26 years, and it's been an exciting time to learn along the way. And what I've found is really our best opportunity is think about a year-round program with these trace minerals so that we're setting that cow up for success. She's building some stores, and whether she's going to hit some tough times or, making sure that we have those minerals there to support the cow, the calf that she has in the ground, and you think about it, that third calf that's in utero, and setting the stage for all of those to benefit from her solid nutrition.
And so when we look at this, how does Zenpro partner with nutritionists and producers to really get that proactive approach to developing the best replacement heifers and have generations of nutrition in mind when we're looking at these females?
That's a great question. And so we partner very closely with the nutritionists at multiple feed companies as they look at their formulations for using the Avela-4 minerals in a free choice mineral. You mentioned a tub that might be in a lick. So there's different ways that we can deliver this. And what they're making sure is they're putting the right levels in there that are research based so that, and we work side by side with them, oftentimes reaching out to producers and helping them understand the importance that this form of trace mineral is different. And this form of trace mineral is going to bring them benefits that are going to impact their bottom line.
So obviously, as we mentioned, it has been quite a few years of drought. Looking at those video sales, we're not seeing a lot of heifers, as many as some maybe thought would be marketed right now as replacement quality. The cattle on feed reports really aren't showing that either. But I think there is some regional rebuilding taking place where there has been some beneficial moisture and producers feel that they can start to rebuild their herds. So from your perspective and working with producers, with ranches that are that really put a focus on creating and breeding replacement quality females, what should cow-calf producers be thinking about when they're investing in replacement females around right now or maybe for next year? I guess what's your tip to them or your thoughts on this?
Sure. So as they're looking at these replacement females, I think it's really making sure that we're getting the right minerals in front of them along with our nutrition programs, because what that's going to do for that heifer is we've seen that when we're developing heifers on Avela-4, that they actually are going to have better retention to that first service. And you think about it, that's going to set them up for lifetime performance and profitability for the producer if they can calve early, stay early. And then as they go in to that second year as a second calf cow, we know that it's just going to continue on that success with keeping these minerals in front of them.
Now, Connie, I know you and the Zenpro team will be on the trade show floor there at the CattleCon 25 coming up in San Antonio. A great resource. It's great catching up with everyone there at the booth, of course. But how can our producers tuning in today to the podcast get in touch with you or other Zenpro experts or some of those great partners out there that include Zenpro in their formulations?
Sure. What's really exciting time for us right now is certainly we have a website. We're easily reached that way. But also with our Zenpro Verified program, many of our customers that are utilizing the Avela-4 are really putting that is easily recognized on the feed tag. And so that's another way to be in touch with Zenpro is to look for that Zenpro Verified and those companies that are our partners as well.
Well, again, Connie Larson with Zenpro, thanks for joining us here today and helping us lead into Jessie Jarvis, our next guest on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Again, thank you to Connie Larson and Zenpro for joining us here today and answering the Cattleman's Call. Hey, we're going to be back right after this with Jessie Jarvis with Of the West. Stick around. We'll be back right here to the Cattleman's Call coming up next. Nothing delivers a better return on investment like healthy cows. Set up the next generation of heifers and cows for lifetime performance with Zenpro Avela-4. Achieve reproductive success in your herd with improved artificial insemination rates, a 20% increase conception reception rate and a 16-day tighter calving interval. Incorporating Zimpro Avela 4 into your nutrition program 365 days a year has been proven to increase the potential profitability of your operation by promoting improved health and productivity. And as we make our way through the fall of 2024, I think everything is shaping up good here in the state of Montana. A little bit of wildfire smoke out there, but calves are looking good here in our neck of the woods. And today we're joined by a neighbor to the west of me from the great state of Idaho. Jessie Jarvis joins us here today. She and her husband and family are there in southern Idaho. So many of you may be already familiar with Jessie and her role in agriculture and media and just trying to keep people going out in rural America. So Jessie, how are things going here today as we take a little time from our main jobs and businesses out in rural America?
Oh, it's good. You know, we're right there with you with that wildfire smoke. It's kind of been a brutal season, unfortunately, this year. I feel really bad for a lot of ranchers in especially the Pacific Northwest, because I feel like they have been hit really hard this year.
Yeah, you look at Oregon over there. It's a lot of friends over there, and they have a lot of fires. And Montana, Idaho, we have a lot of forests that maybe should have been managed a little better with some thinning, and that's another podcast conversation. But definitely makes for the views to go away and just the hardships that producers get that are impacted by wildfire and our livestock and whatnot. And it's just not great to breathe into that smoke. It's, a few years ago, we were out in DC, Jessie, with the Young Cattlemen's Conference crew. And 2 years ago, and all the Canadian wildfire smoke went all the way to DC in June of that year. And all of the elected officials and agency people were just so alarmed by wildfires, but that's just a reality that we all live through every single year, and not even just once a year, even in the West. But may I digress? We're focused on wildfire here today. But Jessie, for some of our friends that are tuning in today, just share a little more about your background in media, in agriculture, and also of the West as well. I know that's such a great resource for so many people out there, but let's just talk about your work in agriculture.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, as you mentioned, grew up on my family's cow-calf operation in southern Idaho, which is where my husband and I and our family reside today. We work alongside my parents. And my husband, he actually came from a family of ranchers as well. They have been in business for 110 years, and we have been here on our operation since the 1940s. So we are both very rooted in agriculture. But I will admit, when I went to college or when I was graduating high school, I was going to go the route of pre-med. I was kind of tired of working on the ranch and maybe being an only child. I didn't have siblings to split the chores with. And so I thought, I think I want a taste of life in the big city. And I had always kind of had an interest in healthcare and medicine. And so I was going to be an anesthesiologist. And I went to a little liberal arts college, and I was the only ranch kid there. And about 6 weeks into that pre-med biology degree, I realized how wrong I was. And I really missed agriculture. I missed the people. I missed what it was that we did and what we produced and how we lived. And that was the first time I'd ever lived in a city, and it was not for me. So I realized then I don't care what I do. I just know that I want to work in agriculture. So instead of that biology degree, I switched to a business degree. And I did stay at that liberal arts college just because a private college, your credits don't necessarily transfer that easily over to a public institution. And if there's anything about me, I am frugal. So I didn't want to have wasted any money. So I stuck with that business degree, and I graduated a few years after that. And then my first job right out of college was working for the Idaho Cattle Association as their communications director. I ended up having an internship and then turned that into my first full-time job. And I spent a number of years there prior to coming home and working on our ranch full-time. And I've been back now about 10 years. And in that time, I've always had a little side hustle of some kind, if you will. I believe that the idle hands are the devil's work. And so I was really, involved daily in our operation prior to my husband and I getting married. But then after we got married and he came here full time, there wasn't necessarily enough work for all five of us, my parents, our employee, and then my husband and I to do. So I always kind of kept myself busy up until a few years ago when I launched Of the West, which is a job platform specifically focusing on jobs in the ag and then Western industries. So Western sports, the equine industry, and then obviously all of agriculture. And that's really what I've jumped into full time. I'm still involved in our ranching operation as often as I can be. But with that startup and then having two little kids, it's one of those things where there's not an easy balance of being able to do it all at once. So I feel like my ranch duties have gotten a little slim as of late, but that's just how it goes sometimes.
That is how it goes. Like I said, I wish I didn't have to talk for a living. I wish I could cowboy all day, but that doesn't pay the bills or the feed note either. But you mentioned creating Of the West. What does the infrastructure look like? Do you work from home? Do you have a brick and mortar? And how does the day in and out of that work for you? And I know businesses, especially family-owned businesses, evolve. But how has it evolved from when you first started to today? And what's your future look like with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a team of 3 and we all work remote from home and we're spread out across the US. I'm obviously in Idaho. Our web developer is in Oregon. And then our marketing team, she is based out of Texas. And that's actually something that I am really passionate about and proud of is if we are a platform that is going to represent all of agriculture and all of the diversity, whether that is, an internship or somebody's first job out of college, all the way up to the executive vice president level of a company working across all 50 states. I want our team to be rooted in that same diversity. I don't necessarily want all of us to be sitting in an office. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a big believer in working in person, but I think for what we do and representing all types of people and different sectors of the industry and different levels within that, it is something that I'm really, really proud of and passionate about in having our employees, rooted in their operations and also being able to work from home and have that side income, because I know, as you mentioned earlier, that is a key piece that keeps farms and ranches in business, is having that little, whether that is a side hustle or somebody's full-time job or part-time job. So no, we do. We run the gamut there.
So when you're looking at just different clients and the services you provide, what could you just walk us through what those are as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the site is free for job seekers to use. It always has been, always will be. That's something that, again, we're really passionate about because job seekers aren't necessarily in a position to go pay for a service that makes them look for a job, right? They need help finding a job. So that's a free service. The employers is, that would be the paid side of the site. So employers can come post their open positions on our site, and then we market those jobs out to this really robust network of job seekers in agriculture and Western industries that we have developed and are continuing to develop. So that's kind of how the site works. We don't do any kind of recruiting and we don't do any kind of headhunting. So we kind of say that we are really more of like a marketing agency for jobs because we're trying to get those out in front of the best candidates, whether those are local to somebody, or maybe a candidate that's looking to move somewhere else or move back home, however that works. So that's kind of how the site works on the job side. And then we also have a sister side of the site called the directory. And the directory is basically for those of the listeners who maybe were 90s or earlier. It's kind of like the Yellow Pages, but the internet version of the Yellow Pages. Kids these days, they don't even know. If you tell them what's a phone book, they're like, wait, what? But basically a directory where you can go look for freelancers and contractors, all who have businesses that are rooted in, again, agriculture or Western industries. So if you are looking for a photographer or a videographer or a social media manager or a web designer or an event speaker, anything and everything in that realm that you could be looking for, somebody who's not going to necessarily work part-time or full-time, but you're going to need them for that project or, maybe that shorter term employment, you can go find them on the directory. And right now we have about 200 businesses listed in the directory. That number is growing every day. But it's become quite the place where people can go find those freelancers or contractors.
And Jessie, we always talk about it in agriculture, specifically in production agriculture, just labor. We know there's always a shortage of labor, and folks are always discussing it. And some people maybe complain more than they try to find solutions to that. What So when we look at that labor and the need to find good, reliable people, what was the conversation or the moment when this idea really sparked for you? When you're like, you know what? Let's use modern technology and let's use the good name that so many people have, and just giving references and whatnot in rural America. Because what was that moment like, and how did you come to that decision that, hey, I can do something to be a part of this conversation and be a part of the solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So my husband and I, we have grown up on ranching operations, and we're very connected. So we're very well connected in the livestock industry. And then obviously in Idaho, if you're a rancher, you probably have some farmer friends. So we felt pretty connected in the farming industry. My husband, he rodeoed in high school and college and still does to this day. And so we have a pretty robust network on the Western sports side. And then there for a time after I had came back home and then before starting Of the West, I actually owned a Western fashion magazine called Western Runway. And so I had a pretty large network of what we would call the Western lifestyle industry. So, the companies who make boots and hats and all of the products that we wear and love. So all of that to say, we have this very diverse personal network. And for whatever reason, we have always been the people who would get calls or texts or emails from friends saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you happen to know of anybody who's hiring? Or, hey, I'm looking for a new employee. Do you know of somebody who would be a good fit? And we kind of felt like matchmakers. We never really knew like the right eligible job seeker for the perfect employer there. But one time it would have been the beginning of 2020, we got 3 or 4 calls in a single week from people, again, looking for jobs or looking for employees. And I thought, holy cow, if this is an issue in my personal network, while everybody feels like I may be well connected, I don't necessarily feel like I'm that well connected. This has to be a problem on a much larger scale. And just being part of our industry, since birth, I do know that it does take a very special person to work in agriculture. You either have to have some industry experience or you have to have passion for the industry. You don't need to be brought up in agriculture to work in this industry, but you do have to be passionate about it or really care about what it is that we're doing. And it can be hard to find that right fit. And then on the job seeker side, I also, at that time, I had been out of college for about 10 to 12 years. And I remember the difficulty in trying to find a job when I was getting out of college. And even as I made these, career moves back home, if I were to go to a mainstream job site, what is the statistic that there's 1 or 2% of the population grows food for for everybody else? Well, 1 to 2% of the jobs on a mainstream job site are in agriculture. And when you are looking through that type of platform, it can be really frustrating because you think, man, there's a great job at Home Depot, or there's a great job at Sherwin-Williams or with Tesla. But those aren't companies that I necessarily want to work for because they're not doing the work that I want to do. And so I wanted to be able to create that place where job seekers and employers could come together, that connection point or that aggregator within the industry to find what they're looking for, to make it easier, more efficient, and to have better results at the end of the day.
Trying to line people up. And again, we are such a small population, but there are so many career opportunities, especially, and again, we're getting outside of just the production ag side of things when we're looking at truly that Western rural lifestyle. What was your first kind of, what was maybe one of your first bigger kind of career areas, and how has that maybe morphed and changed over time, or maybe depending on the year and what changes come with jobs and opportunities? But what areas of the Western lifestyle have changed the most in trying to find employers and employees?
I will say one of the 2 sectors that we tend to get the most of are the livestock sector and the Western sports and equine sector. And I always joke that the cowboy hat is the common theme there, whether you're wearing a cowboy hat in the arena or on your ranching operation. That's kind of the unifier there. Or maybe you're making cowboy hats, because that's another sector that we tend to represent really well. And then obviously, being somebody who is from the Pacific Northwest, we have always had a really strong hold in that Pacific Northwest. And then kind of this diagonal strip down through Utah, Colorado, Oklahoma, down into Texas. That seems to be where the majority of the jobs that we get are located. We do, again, work in all 50 states, but that just kind of seems to be like the really hotbed of jobs and those industries that we work in. But as far as changes that I've seen, honestly, our industry is changing, but it also is not. The types of jobs that we have on the side are the types of jobs that we've always tend to have. I will say, as far as sectors of the industry or maybe career specific things, marketing, that is a hot one. Everybody wants to work in marketing or sales. I think that social media has definitely helped continue to propel that, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. I also think that has given more of an opportunity for, or just proven the need for, things like photographers and videographers, things that are jobs that maybe we would have seen 5 to 10 years ago saying, oh, that's not necessarily as critical to my company. But now, just with the need to continue to create visual content and have that shared, that has been a big one as well. I think that those career areas are going to continue to explode.
How do you maybe share feedback? Do you share feedback with them, or when they reach out like, hey, nobody's applying, or we're having a lot of, I know you're not an HR specialist either though, but it's just, I just find it curious because we're always, folks that are always looking for employees or trying to find it. Like, is there better ways that employers can post the information or try, keep employees out there? I guess, what are some of the challenges you see there for folks looking for high quality, good employees?
Oh, absolutely. The first one, the job description. 95% of the time when somebody comes to us and they say, hey, we're not getting any good applicants or any applicants at all, I can go to that job description, and that is the problem. A job description, it is the canvas, right? It is the thing that you have to paint the picture and make somebody excited as to why they want to work with you and what they're going to be able to do and how they're going to be able to use their talents and really flourish. And if your job description has all of 5 sentences in it, that is not going to attract anybody. It's kind of like a dating profile, right? If you just have 5 sentences about yourself, nobody's going to want to date you. But if you have this really rosy, and I'm not talking like, we're not going to catfish people either and painting this beautiful picture of what they're going to do, and then their job is nothing like that. But you really have to go in and illustrate all of the things and the pieces of somebody's role that they'll be able to do, and where they're going to be able to use their talents and the type of person that you're looking for, and really get people excited. Because on the flip side of that, I can also tell you that when we do get really creatively written job descriptions posted, those jobs get applicants, which again, that equation there is going to tell us that really having a strong job description and just really illustrating all that a role is going to entail, that's really important.
And maybe you don't track this metric, but what are the percentages of, especially obviously when you're looking at production ag, that needs to be on site and whatnot, but maybe for your marketing or your other Western businesses that work with you, what's the percentage of in the office, or how much of that percentage is working from home or remotely?
You are spot on. So anything that's going to be in production agriculture, obviously remote, not an option there. You've got to be on the ground physically doing that work. I will say that marketing roles, any kind of graphic designer type role, a lot of territory type reps where you need to live in the territory, but you're going to be traveling. Those are other remote type of opportunities. Again, it just there's not necessarily a percentage that I can give you because it really truly does depend on the type of job that's being posted. But I will say a few things just in case any of your listeners are younger in their career and they want this like unicorn elusive remote job. The chance that you are going to get your dream remote opportunity right out of college, it's not there. You need to put in the work, and you need to work in an office, because there are so many valuable lessons that you are going to learn in an office working with other people. Maybe you like some of them, maybe you don't like some of them. I, at Of the West, will not hire somebody who has not spent time in an office, because I want to know that you can show up on time to any given place, that you can work well with others, again, whether you like them or whether you don't, that you can work by yourself, but you can also go in and brainstorm with other people. There's so much that you learn in that office setting compared to when you're working from home. And again, working from home, we all think, oh, that's so wonderful. not everybody is cut out for that. If you are a chatty Cathy who thrives and gets your energy from being around people and you have to have that brainstorming, you can't walk over to the microwave and get some good ideas from it. Like when you are at home by yourself, it can be very, what's the word that I'm looking for, Lane? Like it
it's overwhelming when your spouse comes home and you just
yeah.
start talking to them and get it off your chest. Because both my wife and I work from home. I'll jump in here too, and obviously, COVID changed how my network that I work with, Western Ag Network, we haven't entered a TV station since COVID started. Everything I mentioned to you, my home studio is an absolute disaster. I'm remodeling right now, but there is that need of trying to have that interaction, and there's just something. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because circling back to your main point, there is, I've always wondered, especially when COVID hit and everybody was working remotely and moving in that direction. I'm like, how are young people going to get that experience of that internship, of knowing what it's like to have to go get coffee for somebody, or understand that, there is a hierarchy within businesses, whether it's a family-owned business or a corporation or whatever it might be. I guess what I think that is such a good point is you have to intern. And I think kids roll their eyes, especially when they have to do an internship in college and they have to go and participate. But yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine being in my position now, not having worked with people for so many years before being completely remote. I travel a lot and see a lot of people, but I think that's such an important bit of information you shared.
No, you learn.
And I'm sorry I couldn't think of that word that you were trying to
isolating. That's the word that I was looking for. It can be
Yeah.
very isolating. For a long time, because I have worked from home now for probably 8 years, and I am somebody who sometimes Justin will come home at the end of the day, like if they've gone to the sale and he didn't come home for lunch, and I haven't verbally said a word all day long because I didn't have a phone call or I didn't have a Zoom meeting. And that also, I feel like there for a while, I was like, man, like if I don't use it, I'm going to lose it. And that just in my ability to talk and communicate with people. And also the conversations that you're a part of that you can listen in on and learn from other people that, you're not going to have when you're sitting at home. If you are young and you're listening to this, and at some point, yes, you want that remote job, you really do need to put in the dues or pay your dues, put in the work in that office setting, because there's a lot of valuable opportunities there. But I will say, I don't want to hijack the conversation on this.
No,
if
fine.
A company is looking or wondering maybe, okay, we do work in an office, but I feel like in our local area, especially in rural areas, that I'm just not getting the right pool of candidates and they want to explore some remote work opportunities, there is a lot of great room there as well. And as we mentioned, I would first start with some kind of creative position, whether that's marketing, design, because again, it can be really hard to be creative in a cubicle or in an office. I think of how many, and again, I hate to stereotype, but just for this example, we're going to go with it. Okay. Like think of how many talented women are out there on their spouse's ranching or farming operation, and they are incredibly gifted at graphic design. And they are out there living like on a farm or on a ranch, and they are the customer that your business is trying to get in front of. That is the perfect person to have on your team as a graphic designer, because they understand who it is that you're speaking to because it's them. They are surrounded by nature. They completely understand your customer, and they can bring that vision to life for you versus some little 3-walled cubicle. Like that is a very difficult expectation for somebody. So if you are an employer thinking, man, how do I get new talent, or how do I start the remote side of things? I definitely marketing, graphic, anything creative, that's going to be your best bet on where to start and have the most success.
And you bring up just working from home versus an office. I think a lot of young people don't understand either. When you're in that office, you start at a certain time and you end your day at a certain time. And a lot of work usually doesn't come home unless there's a big deadline. But when you are working from home, and especially when you are an entrepreneur and own your own business, it's not 8 to 5. it's a lot more work than that too. And I think that is something for young people to I think should experience both of those too, because I'm not putting down hard work, but sometimes it's nice to not have that full responsibility as a business owner either.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, I know we have again, there's this growing group of people, again, very young, that think, I just want to work for myself. Kind of like working in an office, there is so much value that you get from working for somebody else. Like that's basically, you're getting paid to learn at that point. Versus when you go to college, you have to pay to learn. When you work for somebody, you're going to get your salary or your hourly wage. You are getting paid, but you're also being able to learn. And the amount of opportunities that you are able to learn from somebody in those settings, that is only going to equip you to be more successful. And then if you do decide that you want to, be your own boss or be that entrepreneur, then you can take all of those lessons with you.
Now, Jessie, I want to circle it back to you and your family. For myself, when I'm out checking cows, doctoring calves, checking waters, that's my zen time. That's even though if you need to go doctor a bull and it's a mess, that's my zen time. That's my overall goal. One day, that's all I want to do full time. And maybe that's a pipe dream and I'll be an agricultural broadcaster and doing TikToks for the rest of my life. But for yourself, what is it like though, managing a successful business, but also making sure you're coming back and being a part of a family operation and spending time with your family, but also playing that role of raising high quality protein out in the countryside?
Oh, I will say, being the wife and the mom and the rancher and the business owner, there's not enough hours in the day. But shocker, I think we all kind of feel that way. But it is something that I am so lucky, and I think that probably anybody listening to this would agree, that I get to raise my family in this environment. And you're right, it is stressful. There is no compartmentalizing things. When you live on your ranching operation and you work from home, and so obviously your home is in your office and you're with your family, like there's no way to compartmentalize any of that. When you can't, leave it on your desk and come home, because it's all wrapped into one. But I just think how lucky we are to get to raise our children this way and to get to continue our dreams and, those before us, the dreams that they had, and continue to grow those. There's not many industries left like ours where you have that opportunity. And gosh, it makes me emotional just thinking about it. But the same as you, that anytime that I get to go out and do ranch things, that's kind of my zen time. I know a lot of people on social media, that's like the thing that they show. If you were to get on my Instagram, you probably wouldn't even know that I'm a rancher, because that is the time where I put my phone away. I usually don't get to show much, or I don't choose to show much of that, just because that is the time where I am able to disconnect from the world a little bit. And that's probably very opposite for many people, but I just love to be able to get out there in it and breathe it in and not have to showcase it, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. And I do from time to time, but again, I think that it's just the wanting to be able to step away from work and devices and your connectivity for a while.
It's funny, people ask me, well, actually, you'll think this is funny. So that Farmer Wants a Wife TV show or whatever, they reached out to me on Instagram and they wanted me to audition for, and I'm like, man, I do not post enough about my private life, I guess, online to know that I'm married with 2 daughters. We just don't like to have our family out there on social media that much, since my face is out there so much as it is. But I thought that was kind of funny. But a lot of the time, did you get a picture of what you did today? No, I didn't. But I promise that I was out being a cowboy today. But I just love that you mentioned earlier, to work in agriculture, you either have to have that experience growing up in it or around it, or have that passion for it. For yourself, what do you do to keep that passion alive, to maybe continuing education, seeking new knowledge, just to become not a better rancher and advocate, but also maybe just a better and well-rounded for the people that use your service as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I always think about the quote, "What got you here won't get you there." And again, we think that we can kind of just continue to do what we did and that's got us to where we are. It'll keep getting us forward, but that's not the case. As often as things are changing, especially in this day and age, you have to continue to be on the cutting edge and continue to be an agent for change and want to continue to learn. I will say that when it comes to trying to stay up to date on what's changing in the ranching world and what's changing in the HR world and what's changing in as people and how they use internet, and are they using their mobile phone or are they using their laptop, and how long are they online for, and how much of an attention span do we have? I feel like I'm constantly in this. I cannot sit still. Like I always have to be learning and changing and evolving, because that is what's going to continue to change and evolve our ranching operation and our business. I think a lot of times we think that, oh, well, there's going to be this big time investment or this big monetary investment. Podcasts are free. YouTube is free. Books, yes, there is a cost with books, but gosh, for what you can get out of a book, whether it is, some kind of entrepreneurship book or a personal development book or a biography of somebody's life story, the cost there is very, very minimal. But yes, if you're somebody and the barrier of entry is your time or monetary, funding, podcasts, YouTube, there is so much information out there at our fingertips that there's no excuse not to continue to learn. And I know that for me in my 30s, I am going to continue to have to be a student if I want to see our business succeed, whether that's our ranch or of the West, because, as I mentioned earlier, things are changing at a very rapid rate. And if you are going to stay stagnant and do this is how we've always done it, it's not going to work long term.
When you look at being an entrepreneur, I guess what has been so far in your career, because we always get curveballs thrown at us. What has been the biggest curveball that's maybe been thrown your way that has made your business even better and yourself a better business owner?
Ooh, hard question.
Hardball.
I know. Yeah, okay. Okay, I will say this. We've all heard Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. When I was first building Of the West, I thought, okay, we're going to open this on January 1 and people are going to flock to the site and employers are going to start posting their jobs. And this is going to be the greatest solution ever to exist. And, we're just going to hit it right out of the gate. Kevin Costner lied. You don't just get to build it and they will come. You build it. You put your seed in the ground, and then you have to work your tail off every single day to water it and get the weeds out and continue to grow it just like a crop. And you can't just build this business and think that it's going to run itself. And I was totally naive. And I will say that maybe I can blame it on the fact that we had launched a business on January 1st, and then I was going to have a baby on February 2nd. So I had basically twins at this point, a brand new baby and a brand new business. But, you do have to continue to learn and to be progressive and continue to want to have that evolution in your business, because just because you built it doesn't mean that it is going to run itself. It really is like a crop. You have to put time and effort into it, and you have to water it every day and give it these perfect conditions. And, then when you sell your crop and you have your money, then guess what? You got to invest it back into that crop and maybe buy an extra field or whatever that is to continue to truly grow it to get things where they need to be. So again, young, naive Jessie Jarvis, that's what she learned.
Well, I always joke about those young FFA and 4-H kids that maybe they're just out of high school. They're really active in so many different clubs and opportunities in college. And like when you go to the cattle con and you see the interns at cattle convention, and they're ready to take on the world and be a voice and make some positive changes. And I love that. It kind of makes me a little sick sometimes too, because I was exactly like those kids 10, 15 years ago. But they're so enthusiastic and they want to make a difference in the world, specifically in agriculture. And I think it's just so important for them to hear that and to understand, take that passion and bottle it up a little bit and set it in a direction that you want to go. But yeah, I just love those kids that are right out of college or right out of FFA and 4-H, and then they hit the real world and they're like, oh man, things aren't as rosy as they seem. I love
No,
that they have that internal optimism, but
they do.
then the real world hits.
That is so funny. I say that same thing. It's like and we've all been there, right? So I'm not dogging on anybody. But they kind of, they do. They think that the world is their oyster. And then they get out into the real world and they get knocked down a couple pegs and they realize like, oh, we got to pump the brakes. I can't just go like you're running a marathon, not a sprint. And the energy that they have when they're 21 is this sprint mentality. And it is a marathon. And just like you said, you've got to bottle it up and use it as fuel at mile 12 when you are dying and you haven't even made it halfway yet.
Yeah, and then they figure out that things hurt a little more too when you stay up all night and have fun and everything else the older you get. So I think that's where some of that enthusiasm dies off along the way too. But yeah, coming back to Of the West, can you share maybe just one of the examples of where you worked with maybe one of those young, bright, willing to go change the world type young people coming into the workforce, or maybe somebody that's in their 30s or 40s that maybe found their dream job through your service?
Now that we've been doing this as long as we have the last 4 years, I will say that it is very often where I will go somewhere, whether it is an event of some kind, and I will have somebody come up to me and say, hey, I have my job and I found it because of the West and I absolutely love it. And I will say that gives me chills. That is just as cool as when we go to pick our replacement heifers in the fall, because I know that, when we pick replacement heifers, those cows, they are my partners for the next 10 to 12 years. And, I'm going to work hard for them and they're going to work hard for me. And they, because of what they do, they're going to put back into my family. It is that same feeling because I think, holy cow, how many nights did we stay up till 1 a.m. building this platform? And, how many failures did we think that we had on the inside that looking out, nobody noticed it, or stresses or tears? Cause yes, I've cried many tears. But then to know that the reason that somebody found their job, the way that they can keep the lights on, the way that they can, pay their bills and feed their family and take their families on vacation is because they found that job through a platform that we have worked tirelessly to build. Like it really does. It gives me chills and our entire team. It is a very big deal. And, the job world is a very serious one. It's not necessarily very sexy either. I wish that I was selling clothes or something like that, that's fun and exciting and this new thing. But, jobs and careers are not necessarily that way. They're not something that we want to talk about. It's, that's why we have hobbies in the weekend. We want to get away from them. But we all, for the most part, unless you have a trust fund, have to have a job. And we're really passionate about what we do. And jobs are the thing that are going to keep the agriculture industry and the livestock industry alive for years to come. And so just to know that we get to play a part in that matchmaking and helping connect people with one another and provide for their families, I tell you what, that is a very, very cool feeling.
Jessie, on the employer side, what is maybe some of the bigger, not a bigger, but what's a roadblock or something that makes an employer hesitant about maybe using an online service, or maybe you need to hold their hand a little bit, like you said, even just writing that job description, but it's maybe a hurdle that an employer has to get over when they're coming into a new type of way to reach possible employees?
Yeah, I will just say just changing their habits. And it's going to depend on the type of business. For farmers and ranchers, like I look at my family, the employee that we've had working for us, he has been here since I was in high school. When I was in high school, that was in the early 2000s. Life has changed. Like there wasn't social media necessarily at that time. So how my parents found that employee, if they had to go find somebody new tomorrow, the classifieds don't exist. But if you go to a classified section, there are still people who are trying to post a job back there. Kids these days don't know what the classifieds are, right? We have to change our habits and how we find those employees and how we put that information out there in order to attract the right quality candidate. And same on the job seeker side. Of the West is a newer thing. Yeah, 4 years doesn't seem like that new, but I mean, when it comes to the online world, you've got to be like 10 years or older. And so just getting people to change their habits as far as knowing that Of the West is a resource that they can use, whether they're looking for a job or, we also have resources on helping people with their resumes or interview tips, or on the employer side, questions that you can ask in an interview or questions that are illegal to ask in an interview that maybe somebody who's a first-time employer had no idea they can't ask these things. So just providing more education, that's obviously something that we are very rooted in, but all of it goes back to just the ability and willingness to change our habits, which I think it speaks volumes to all of us. We do have to get out of our comfort zone, and we have to be willing to try new things and be those agents for change.
A question, you talked about just back when we were in high school, there wasn't a lot of social media. MSN was an option back then. But in the perfect world, would you have preferred Facebook or MySpace?
Ooh.
Sarah's laughing. Sarah Gregory, who helps produce the podcast, because she learned some things about MySpace and Facebook during CattleCon this year. But I'll let you answer that.
I was going to say, is sweet Sarah even old enough to know what MySpace was? And probably not. I will say, I think now, if you had a top 8, life would be over. You would really offend some people out there. So I think that for that reason, I'm going to have to stick with Facebook.
Sarah learned during CattleCon, we sat down with 2 really excited college kids that we just talked about, ready to take on the world. And I told them that when Facebook first started, you had to have a .edu email to be able to log in to Facebook, and that blew all of their minds. I don't know. I liked MySpace. I did deactivate my account just because I didn't need someone hacking it and having a cooler life than I have. But going back to Of the West, how many job postings have you had in those 4 years?
Ooh, close to 1,000. I will say over 1,000 actually, now that I think about it. We've worked with over 600 employers and about 10,000 job seekers.
Wow. That's great. That's great. And again, rural America, whether it is the Western lifestyle, rodeo, sports, whatever that might be, we are a very small community and we're tight knit. And I just think this service, helps bring people closer together and closer to those dream jobs. And, I do have a question for you. I have 2 daughters, 5 months and almost 3 years. I guess what is a tip that you have for young women that are growing up in production agriculture and are maybe seeking career opportunities outside of agriculture, and maybe they'll come back to it, maybe they won't. But I guess, what is just some tips you have for young women out there about just about being active in agriculture, but also seeking those job opportunities and careers to have the best life possible and following their dreams?
Oh gosh, I love this question. I have a lot to say here. So I will say that, I definitely think that women can definitely be seen that less than in the world. That's just kind of how it is. We're all aware of that. That's probably kind of why you asked the question. That being said, I think we in agriculture are so lucky because it doesn't necessarily matter if you are a man or a woman, specifically like on a ranching or farming operation. You are expected to do it just like your other counterparts are. And I have never been made to feel any less than because I was a woman. Yes, I may not have the upper body strength that my husband does, but I am going to be able to figure out a way to do it. It may take longer. It may not look as pretty as he did it, but I am still able to do it. And I was taught that from a very young age from my parents and my dad. And I can do anything I set my mind to. It doesn't matter if I'm a male or a female. And I think that we in agriculture are very lucky because I think that we have so much respect for one another. We know there are men out there who know their operation could not exist without their female counterparts, and there are females out there who know the same thing about males. And I think that that we are very lucky. It's one of the few industries that are like that. That being said, though, times are changing because agriculture has been predominantly male dominated. And if you look now specifically at college institutions in the ag department, many of them have a higher female enrollment than males. And even and that's on the college side of things. If you look at the Western sports side of things, there are more females entering breakaway roping and barrel racing than there are male counterparts in all male events, whether that is rough stock, whether that is timed event. Women are outpacing men. So at some point we are going to get to a place where there are more females in agriculture than males. It is not going to be very far off. It's probably going to be between this, 2050 is the year that we keep saying there's going to be 10 billion people in the world that we're all going to have to feed. I bet that males or females outpace males before we get there.
Yep. Well, thanks for that insight too. And like I said, I have 2 daughters and I want them to follow their dreams. And I also want them, to stay active in agriculture too, but I don't want a bar set in front of them.
No, no, not at all.
So Jessie, circling it back to just your involvement in ranching and agriculture, are you active in the state associations or on the national level, just, continuing to advocate and advance the livestock business?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And if anybody is listening and you're not active, I cannot encourage you enough to get involved. We have been ICA members, Idaho Cattle Association members, since as long as I can remember. My husband and I are as well. Obviously, I worked for them for 3 years, and then I was also involved in their board as the cattlewoman representative. And the amount of information that you learn, whether it's from going to an annual convention or a summer roundup, or just any kind of thing that you can do, I highly encourage you guys to get involved. NCBA is obviously another great one as well. The work that these organizations are doing on our behalf is absolutely fundamental to our industries in the future. And I think that we, especially if we want to continue to see our industries through, we need to have that unified voice that these types of associations and organizations are providing for us. And going back to learning, there are so many learning opportunities at a very low cost barrier. I think of our state cattle association meeting every November in Sun Valley. The amount of information that I have been able to learn from that event is absolutely worth the being gone from our operation for a couple of days, and the networking and the connections that you make. Our industry can be very lonely. You do have to get off the ranch every now and then, or off the farm every now and then, and get with other people who are like-minded, whether it's just for the camaraderie and the conversation or to learn new things. But no, if you're listening and you're not involved, if that is the one takeaway you have from this, please go get involved, learn more, reach out to somebody, because the work that these organizations and groups are doing is absolutely crucial. And then this year, I am a member of NCBA's Trailblazers program, which is funded by the Beef Checkoff. There are 10 of us in this cohort, and we are from across all areas of the U.S., which is really cool, different sectors of the industry. And it's been really wonderful to get together with a group of people that are, high achievers and want to continue to be stronger spokespeople for the industry, to get to learn from their experiences and to get to share my experiences and to just continue to be those strong communicators for the industry. I've really enjoyed that program, and I'm very honored to be a part of that as well.
That's great, Jessie. And again, it doesn't seem like you lack for being busy at all.
No, I probably could say no to a few things, but we'll get there someday.
Well, again, Jessie Jarvis here today, founder of the West. Obviously for our friends listening, if they want to learn more about you and Of the West, what are the best channels that they can hop onto? Yeah,
so ofthewest.co is our web address. Apparently those .co's, they're the new thing, because all the .coms are taken. So yes, ofthewest.co. It's the same over on Instagram, ofthewest.co. On Facebook, you can search Of the West or Jobs of the West, either one. And then I am Jessie Jarvis. You can follow me on Instagram at Mrs. J Jarv, so MRSJJARV. And then I also have a website, jessiejarvis.com.
Jessie, I appreciate you taking some time here today, and thank you for all you do to help people find employees and help people find their dream jobs as well, and also keeping protein on people's plates as well.
Oh, well, Lane, thank you guys for having me. I'm really honored to be here, and I just appreciate you asking me to be a guest. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for answering the Cattleman's Call, and for all of our listeners joining us here today. If you haven't done so, make sure and subscribe, share, and follow along for all of our Cattleman's Call conversations here on the podcast. With that, friends, thanks for joining us. I'm Lane Nordlund. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with Lane Nordland. For more information, visit ncba.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast today.